I'm not gonna say your mother's old. I'm just
She's 90.
That's fair. I submit for your consideration that they could have picked a better book to follow Ecclesiastes with than Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I felt like I left a Ray Wiley Hubbard concert and then had to go home and watch a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Yeah. You should tithe what you make.
yes, gross or net.
Which one you want to be blessed on? The battle is the Lord's. I'm just a soldier in this thing.
But we have to do it daily.
That's it. Well, I mean, you don't show up to battle once a week. You'll lose territory that way.
Pride is a form of self-worship,
Sure it is.
which is the absolute, probably worst false god you can have in your life. Then you start to really draw the connection between why he hates pride so much.
For Christianity, you guys show up moment by moment, day by day. It's around the clock because the enemy don't sleep.
The Cliff Notes of the Bible said these verses were likely referring to their first fight, and I thought to myself, I wonder which one of the concubines caused that one. I can imagine where that might have come from. I feel like
On the macro, maybe not the micro.
Oh,
Do what?
nice. A little fancy,
Yeah.
words there. Not just going small end, lower end. Got big picture, forest, trees. Yeah, I like that.
zoom in, zoom out.
Macroeconomics. I love it. Oh man, well, you better welcome us in, man. We ain't even welcomed in.
We're going to do it twice
We've
because
been
we might end up with multiple shows here. So welcome back to the other 167. So I requested a longer recording time today, partially because it is holidays. We'll probably miss, I'm guessing, Christmas Eve at least. I think last year we didn't do a New
Yeah,
Year's
that's
Eve.
Christmas Eve is Christmas is a Wednesday this year. I'm looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
That's why I'm.
So Christmas
I'm looking
Eve
over
will be
there.
a normal recording day.
Yep. Christmas Eve and then
Wednesday, yeah.
New Year's Eve too.
What do y'all do on Christmas Eve? Just, I need to do the candlelight service.
Candlelight service here. 5:30.
I mean,
Anybody's
with your
local.
family, what do you do?
We eat a quick lunch at my mom's or lunch/supper right before the candlelight. Then I rush over here and get stuff ready, and then we have candlelight. Then we go down to her mom's, and then tuck the kids in bed. But they're grown now, so ain't too much tucking.
no tucking anymore.
Yeah, they used to all sleep in the same room. They don't do that no more. They're 20-some years old. They're kind of like, nah.
We used to open up one Christmas present.
Oh, that's nice.
It was always pajamas.
Always pajamas. And then they match.
My mother picked them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were they matching? Everybody's matched the same?
That's in the archives. I can't remember that.
See, we never did that. We never did the
Yeah.
getting the. That's what I know people that do it. Nothing against it, but we never did that.
Yeah. How'd your recordings go this morning? Did you get
It
some?
went well. Went well. Yeah, I'm doing a different series. This will be starting on the 20th of December, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Released at 5 o'clock every night on Facebook, on our website, Facebook page, and church's Facebook page. Yeah.
There you go.
And but we're doing something different in the fact of, like I said, Sunday. To me, the Advent season's, I don't know, you hear the same stories. Now, I had somebody call me out on that and said, look, we love. It's just like when you read your favorite story with a child.
Mm-hmm.
You'd love to hear those stories. And I said, yeah, but I want to try to present it something fresh and new. So anyway, we're doing Home for the Holidays with the emphasis on the word holidays, being our Christmas devotional series. And what I'm doing is I'm taking like various other holidays and comparing them with Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the New Year's of Christmas, we're a new creation in Christ. We've got the Easter of Christmas, I'm crucified with Christ. We've got the 4th of July, that it is for freedom that Christ set you free, and the Thanksgiving of thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. So
that is
kind
cool.
of ties in. It's just something to do something a little bit different. And it'll probably be people like, okay, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I like that. And you said it a couple of times here lately that, Thanksgiving, you're always preaching the same thing. You want to mix it up this year.
Yeah.
Christmas, you're trying to do something a little
trying.
different. But I was thinking about that a little bit, something you said Sunday. I'd been thinking this a little bit, and this kind of reminded me to put it in my notebook. There's a lot of things I've noticed. You'll use the same phrases a lot of times.
Sure.
I've got my catchphrases. Kenny's got his. Everybody kind of develops.
Full of them.
Right. But I was thinking about, sometimes we can probably try too hard not to repeat ourselves and not to, that we start
believe
to
me.
have to play that gymnastics with our words, as you said sometimes, so that we can say something fresh. Well, I was thinking about this Sunday. I commented one time about how the book of John repeats itself over and over. Jesus himself repeats himself a lot in, and it's not just because it's 4 different gospels. I mean, in John 14, 15, 16, he's saying the same thing 4 or 5 times in one chapter sometimes. There's not but so many ways you can tell the truth. You know what I mean?
I think so. I think the ways you communicate it and the stories, but the message never changes. You're right. I think it's also one of the things I've been looking at, and as I'm preparing for this Sunday, is how many times in the Old Testament, how many times Jesus tells us to remember. Don't forget, to always go back and think about these things and to reflect upon them. And then I was looking through some things the other day, and one of my favorite books is John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress. And The Pilgrim's Progress is an excellent study of the Christian life, and in there's a area that one of the most dangerous ways or places that you could go on this journey as a Christian, going to the celestial city. One of the most dangerous places is called Forgetful Glen, or like a meadow glen. And what happens is we forget what we've been saved from. We forget what Christ has done for us. We forget. And so I think it's very important for us to always try our best to go down memory lane and remember what God did for us in Christ Jesus, to remember what we've been saved from, to never get over and never forget what all he's done there. Yeah. And so there's a part of me that says maybe that's one of the reasons that there's the repetition in the scriptures, is because I know how easy it is for us as humans to just forget stuff. Yeah. I mean, we are busy. We got so many things on our mind. Life happens. And so we need those reminders. And so maybe that same phrasing over and over again helps us, sinful people, to remember.
I had to teach Sunday men's class. We were teaching on Moses when he was born.
Oh, that's great.
And it just caught me off guard because I'm kind of going through some of the same things. But, they had been praying. Well, they had been slaves. I don't know how long. At least till Moses.
400 years.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe just right after Joseph.
Yeah.
But it was increased with that Pharaoh that they went to genocide with Moses.
Yeah.
When he was born. And all those guys, they kept praying and praying, but no answer. Praying and praying, but no answer. And I started thinking about that. I have one prayer, Renee and I have one prayer that, we're kind of discouraged.
Right.
Very discouraged. And she said something the other day that really, it caught me by surprise what she said. And I'm thinking, they kept praying. Some of them even died.
Sure.
Before Moses, before they were murdered.
If you stop and think about it, you started with the 12 boys and their family, and somehow or another there's 3 million when they leave. Yeah. That's pretty good. That's a few generations.
Yeah, I mean, even when Moses was born, some of them never even saw Moses delivered. Yeah. And I'm thinking,
I doubt his parents did.
Yeah. And they, without their prayer being answered, and then of course they had to wait on Moses. Moses had it 40 years, so he had to figure himself out from 40 to 80.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, man, I remember my grandmother. She had 15 children. 3 died at birth, so that was 12. She raised them in church when they were young. And this is coming through my father and not really my grandmother, because she was old when I come around. I mean, I think she might have been close to being in a nursing home.
Well, she had 12 youngins.
Yeah, to keep you busy.
I mean, and depending on where your dad was born, if he was number 10 or 11.
He was the last
old.
one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guarantee you by the time you came around, she was already...
So his father died when he was at 4 years old. His father fell out of a truck somehow. I don't really know the story on that. But she was praying all those years, and not one of them became a Christian during her lifetime. And that burden that she carried. And to compound it on, every one of them but one became an alcoholic. And because I can remember my father, I do remember this. We stopped at a store, and he was going through a lot of financial problems. My mother gave him some money. I don't know how much it was. It was enough for bread and milk. And he came out with a 6-pack of beer. Then he realized he had a problem. And so anyway, but they all, before they passed away, and a lot of them, it was close before they died. They all became Christians, but she never saw it. And I am faced with that same thing in my life and Renee's life. All we see is Father. You know,
Yeah, it's not.
Father,
It don't seem like it's getting
going
there.
the other way. When I read that, it made me think. Well, you know, just because I don't see it, that doesn't mean it's not going
That's
to
right.
happen. And it might be it might happen after I die. Or
Could
after
very well
Renee
be.
dies.
Well, I think that's. I mean, that's kind of what faith is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But you know, but when you're living it, it's tough. When
Sure.
You're praying for this, but it's going this way. When
you
you
won't
want
see
it to
it.
go this way.
Uh,
And I think, you know, prayer, it's not changing the situation, but it's changing the way
You.
I look at it.
Yeah, it's changing you.
It's changing me. It's going to happen because I believe God's going to, everybody
are.
has a chance. God's going to deal with
There you
everybody,
are.
wherever you're at. Prayer and people getting saved kind of go hand in hand. Even though God's going to do it, but that's part of praying. Really, I think a lot of times praying is, when I say praying, it's really talking to God. It settles your mind that, okay, you got this, you know what's going on, I can't see it, I probably never will see it. And my other grandmother, I just remember her coming home from school. She was praying for her 2 sons, and I mean just every single day. And I'm thinking, why do you, every time I come home, she's in her back bedroom praying for her 2 sons. And one of them got killed before she passed away. Now, where his salvation was, I don't know.
Right.
It was in another state. He got stabbed to death in another state. But her other son, which was about 2 years older than me, never accepted the Lord. And the last time I talked to him was right before he passed away. I guess probably within a month. But he knew he was raised in the church. But he said he didn't want to have anything to do with it. I don't know. He died in his sleep of a massive heart attack. He was like 500 pounds. I mean, they wouldn't, he had to have surgery, but they wouldn't do it because he tipped the scales. He weighed too much.
Ooh.
So I don't know about that one, but I do believe that I do remember him, since I kind of grew up with him, he did serve the Lord. Maybe he was just telling me that,
Right.
but he did serve the Lord for a little while. I don't know. But anyway, what I'm saying is, sometimes we'll never see the answer
No.
until we get to heaven.
No.
And anyway, that teaching that lesson Sunday really inspired.
No,
my
I
faith.
think that's a part of what I was getting at with what faith is. I mean, Abraham never saw he knew there was
Look
a
forward.
celestial city. You know, a lot of these folks did things that they knew there was something far beyond them. And there might be something answered that, hey, I'm hoping for this, and I know God's promised it, and I may not see it. I mean, Abraham was promised there would be a seed that would come and bless all the nations. Well, he had to trust that. And first he had to trust that God was going to provide a son. And let's see, that was 20-some years he had to wait. And I'm sure there were numerous days and numerous months that, okay, Lord, we're now into our 20s, and my wife is way past menopause, and my wife is, 90 years old. How's she going to have a baby?
And it was impossible. And I'm at that point where I don't think it's going to, I was at that point.
But he believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And Renee was close to that point. So what we got to do, in the meantime, we got to keep showing love, being.
You keep
kind.
trusting, keep praying, and
And-
keep
And
on.
that's not an easy thing to do when
No.
everything else is going the other way.
And everything looks the other way.
Yeah.
No, that's where the
But anyway,
promises
that's
of
what
God
it
come, and
reminded
that's where you trust. I mean, it really is. That's really what trust and faith is about. Is despite what it looks like, I'm going to trust that what God's saying is right.
Yeah, that's how. Well, I come back to this scripture there. Man, everything's going away. We're getting further and further in slavery. This ain't working out. I mean,
that's
we've
it.
heard this, but it's God's timing and not our timing. And it could be way in the future. A lot of people died before they even saw the promise.
That's right.
I was telling you that this is going to sound like I'm totally changing the subject, but I'm not. There's a purpose to this little anecdote, I guess. I was telling you I went into some golf balls Sunday afternoon, and I've kind of found I've started to hit balls a little bit more and starting to just play around golf a little bit. And one of the things that's really cool to me about it is that God uses golf to communicate with me in some ways, because there's a lot we've talked about on the shows and things, and this might have even been what kind of got me back into hitting balls a little bit, how there's a lot of parallels between your walk and golf.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't find perfection.
Any
You're constantly
sports,
trying to
but
get there.
it's-
Right.
yeah,
But also,
golf.
because I've played so much in my life, it's I have a lot of knowledge of it, so he can use that as a way to speak to me, I guess. And I was thinking about Sunday afternoon. I went and hit golf balls for a little bit, and a couple of little stories to this. There was, I get out there and I have one particular thing I'm trying to work on. So I tried to do this little drill where I tried to put on this little device, and I'm trying to do this really weird looking thing. And if you were watching the ball itself, just where it went, you'd think this guy can't break 1,000.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the worst players I've ever seen. But my purpose wasn't to hit the ball well.
Yeah.
I was trying to work on the way
What it
I
feels
bend
like.
my body and the way I approach the ball and all this stuff. Well, you watch me hit 4 or 5 balls like that, I can barely even make contact. And then I go put the ball, put that device away, I get a different one out, and I hit a couple of shots, and it looks a little better, not much.
Right.
And then I may put the club away or go get another club and just hit 5 balls, just forget everything, just hit as good as you can.
Right.
And then you watch me hit, and it's like, man, okay, this guy can play. If you just stood there for an hour and a half and watched me hit golf balls, you wouldn't know what to think of me. Because
Right.
I've hit 5 or 10 shots.
It could be bad.
Yeah, I've shanked a dozen balls. Okay, and after each of those shanks, I didn't care where the ball went. That wasn't those shots
Yeah.
were not
You was
designed.
working on the field.
I was working on something. And sometimes I do think that's how God can be working in our lives. There's little things that He's doing that it may not look pretty right this second, but it's for another purpose. There was something else from that though. Towards the end of my session, though, I was like, I always have this one go-to shot that I learned when I was about 17. The guy that taught me, he really was the one who really taught me how to play. He taught me this little shot, and I fell in love with it. It was a little knockdown draw that he taught me. And I loved this shot. I was inventing reasons to hit it when I didn't need to hit it. Just loved it. The other day, I videoed that shot. I was like, I'm going to hit this shot and see what it looks like on video. Well, it turns out that shot actually looks like a pretty good swing. Now, I'm manipulating the club to try to... My manipulations actually get me on plane the way it's supposed to be, right? So as I'm watching it, I thought, it's funny. My teacher in high school that taught me that, he wasn't so much teaching me the knockdown draw as much as he was manipulating me into swinging it the way I needed to. And that's why that shot worked so well all these years, is because that was actually me doing it the right way. I think there's a lot of that I see from God in my life. There's a lot of things that He's done that looked really, really ugly at that time, that if He hadn't done them, wouldn't be where we are now.
I agree. Well, it's just like, if you will, kind of like an OC in football, offensive coordinator. He might call one of the terriblest plays a little handoff to the right-hand side. And what he's doing is he's just looking to see what that tight end's, defensive end's going to do. And once he sees what the defensive end's going to do, okay, now that opens up something else. I agree. I think there are times when the Lord may have something that may be inconsequential, and it may not seem like a big deal, but it's something that later he can use, or it'll be something that'll help us in our walk, or it might be something that just gives us a little spark of faith. I mean, I think that's the thing is I never say God couldn't do it, because I know He can do all things. And so, and that may be something with, having that conversation about what y'all are, what you're struggling with faith. It might be something that God may bring something that's just a little small, something to say, hey, I've been faithful. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't panic yet. I've got this. And I think that's always what I have to remind myself is, no, the battle is the Lord's. I'm just a soldier in this thing. So, Lord, you know what you're going to do and what you need to do it. I'm just want to be faithful to what you put before me right now.
But we have to do it daily.
That's it. No, well, I mean, you don't show up to battle once a week. You'll lose territory that way.
I mean, we have to pray, and I've learned, that I see the importance of praying daily, reading the Word daily, because every day you stay away from it, you veer just a little bit off, and you always go back to the old way. And I'll tell you something that happened to me today. I went to the hospital yesterday, and I was clean.
Mm-hmm.
And right before I went in, they put a couple of stickers on my chest. I'm in a clean environment, for crying out loud.
Did you know that you think?
Yeah. Well, and I didn't.
If you want to get sick, go to the hospital.
Yeah, but as far as dirt, I'm clean.
Right.
I got home. I didn't do anything outside. And I got up this morning to take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
And when they pulled that tape off, I mean, that hurts. That hurts. Yeah. Where they had pulled the tape off,
Residue.
I had residue on
Yeah.
it. So, you know, and that's just like, and it just kind of reminded me of like praying. You got to do it every day, every day, every day, every day. Because if you don't, you're just going to get a little dirty, a little dirtier, or you're going to doubt a little more, a little more, a little more. Even though I thought I was fine. I thought I was pretty clean, yeah. So I guess that's the importance of spending time. One of the reasons why we need to spend time with the Lord is because our minds are so fickle. At least mine is. It's so fickle. I can revert back very quickly, but I have to keep renewing my mind, as Paul says in Romans chapter 12. Every day, I've got to go back and I still believe that. Yes, I see that. Even though I've read it 1,000 times, I have to read it again just to keep myself in front of the Lord and keep my eyes focused on Him. Because if I don't do it every day, I'm going to just kind of just fall away.
Yeah.
And I think that's with every Christian. We have to have time with the Lord, not for Him, for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't, you'll either revert to autopilot, or and autopilot's just going to get you again going
You're gonna be
further
back
and further
where
away.
you were, yeah.
When you just go through the motions, going through the motions is about the same as just standing still or dying in your spiritual walk.
Straddle the fence.
Yeah.
Well, it is every day in the Word, every day in prayer, but also that surrendering your worries to Him
Well, that's- I
every
mean,
day.
that's the way-
That's the hard one for me. Is I can read the Bible every day. It ain't hard. I can put that on a checklist. I can knock it out every morning before I take the kids to school if I want to. I can say a prayer every day. That's trusting God every day. That's the hard one for me.
It is, I think, for all of us, actually, and that's part of it, trusting God, not for the things that we know He can do, for the things that really, if you can believe creation, you can believe anything.
Yeah.
I agree.
If you can believe that He created this whole world, can't He really solve your financial problems or whatever problems you are? I mean, that's just really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
This universe that we live in never ends, and it's so vast. If He could do that in 7 days, 6 days, couldn't He just solve, put maybe $25,000 in your checking account? I mean, that might not happen, but I'm just saying, yeah, He could do it.
Yeah, and part of that is 2 Corinthians 4:16 too, which says our outer body is decaying, but every day by day, our inner man is being renewed. And that renewing that spirit, that growth in that spirit, and the growth in daily dying to self, daily committing to the Lord, daily, whatever the case may be, is that seeking the Lord daily. It's going to help us to be able to live it out, because it is not like I said, it isn't a show up once a week job. For Christianity, you got to show up moment by moment, day by day. And I submit that it needs to be more than just once a day. It's around the clock.
It could be every minute.
Yeah, it is around the clock, because the enemy don't sleep, and so you got to stand by your guard and stand by your stuff, or have on that armor 24/7, because he will attack when you least expect it.
Yeah.
And I like to hang around with older Christians, like your mother, somebody.
Right.
You know,
So
has
you're
some
going by
or-
age, not
Yeah.
by spiritual maturity.
Well, I'm going by age because she's been around a lot longer.
So see, I submit for your consideration that spiritual maturity isn't always.
Oh,
by
well,
age.
yeah, I know that. I know
Okay.
that.
I didn't know.
I didn't mean it that way. I just saying, I like to be around.
So
those
you're
who
saying
think-
old and mature.
Yes. Well.
Chronological.
I'm not going to say your mother's old. I'm just saying
She's 90.
She's a young
That's
one.
fair.
I like to be around people that have been through it.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
At the same time, I like being around people that are spiritually mature that,
Or going through it.
maybe aren't or going through it. That's it. That's fun too.
But it's just encourages me to see someone that has been through things.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I think I can do that too. But having an example to go by,
Yeah, I agree.
that's really what I meant.
No, that's why when we say older or mature, what exactly we mean,
Yeah.
because they don't always correlate.
Well, older Christian people that have been in the faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Older
Is that-
than yours. I guess that's what
Is
it is.
that,
No,
does
just
that help you out
just-
some?
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate the clarification, Chief.
So
I didn't realize I had to be so detailed on it, but
you got to.
Yeah,
He's a
sure
rookie.
you
You got to
do.
hold. You got to hold.
we
it.
gotta.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
So I have I got a hot take for you here.
All right.
So I've told you before I tend to binge read the Bible because I've got to have. My Bible time's kind of like a good restrictor plate engine. It takes a couple laps to get me
Right,
good
get
warmed
it
up,
going.
right?
I got you.
About every other weekend when I don't have the kids, that's where I'm able to really get a lot of reading knocked out. So I've done quite a bit over the last weekend or so, and I do understand. I'm not arguing this, and mostly I'm joking here with what I'm about to say. So don't anybody get all mad and bent out of shape on me. I know it's God's divine inspired word.
Right.
It's infallible. I know that. Humans have their fingerprints on the word and the way it was
Most definitely.
put together.
God
I-
used their personalities.
I submit for your consideration
Men for my consideration. I love that.
that they could have picked a better book to follow Ecclesiastes with than Song of Solomon.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm reading Ecclesiastes and I'm thinking, I love this.
Ecclesiastes.
And I knew kind of going into it what it was about, and I knew I would
I
enjoy
knew
it.
you'd like Ecclesiastes.
I did.
That's right up your alley.
It is.
Purpose
it is.
of life.
Yep.
Man who's tried it all.
Dark, cynical, and all this just
But
kind
he's
of led
tried
me
it all,
to.
and
Right.
he's
Yep.
found out all
This
his
is all that
vanity.
matters. That's right.
And then he comes and he sums it all up.
Yeah.
But then he follows that up with Song of Solomon. I'm with you. Because when you texted me and said, hey, I've been reading this, I said, I better refresh myself a little bit on that. And I was reading it last night thinking to myself, this is a book that I've never, I've done
Have you ever
studies,
preached
but
on it?
honestly, no.
Look,
I didn't think, I've only heard one sermon. That was Dr. Jeremiah.
Yeah.
David Jeremiah. Preach on it.
now I'm not knocking
Not
Song of.
much.
I'm not necessarily knocking Song of Solomon by itself. I'm saying as a following act to Ecclesiastes, I felt like I left a Ray Wiley Hubbard concert and then
Right.
had to go home and watch a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Yes, I
it
get
was
it.
such
I
a
get
turn,
it.
especially considering I just read 12 chapters about how he searched with 700
searching for-
wives and 300
yes.
concubines, didn't find what he was
Doesn't
looking
mean
for.
a thing.
And then I read the next book about presumably one of the first.
Yeah.
Was the greatest thing of ever and makes him so happy. And I'm thinking, I did chuckle though when there's a part there that the Cliff Notes of the Bible said these verses were likely referring to their first fight. And I thought to myself, I wonder which one of the concubines caused that one. I could
Yeah.
imagine where that might have come from. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting, all these different ways you could have put this together. And you put that one, like, even if you led with Song of Solomon and then followed with Ecclesiastes, it made more sense. But to put it right behind it.
Well, look, I hate to say this. Martin Luther, who was the great reformer, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther was a great reformer, said that the book of James is might as well be straw. Just set fire to it. It's terrible. I'm not Martin Luther, and I'm not at liberty to say that, but Song of Solomon's almost that close to me that I'm kind of like, I've read it numerous times. I've done Bible studies on it. No, I've never preached from it, but it's almost kind of, I don't know.
It would be a tough one to.
To me, it's so sappy too.
Yeah.
You know, just your neck is like an ivory tower. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh goodness.
Maybe I'm 15 years too late reading it. Maybe it would have been more handy a few years ago, but it's not.
I've been married 30, and I'm still kind of like, okay, I read it, Lord. I know there's something good.
I know it's there,
And
yeah.
there's got to be some powerful stuff
Yeah.
there, but at the same time, I'm with you. Ecclesiastes reads better. To me, you mentioned Esther.
Yeah.
Esther's a book that is full of mystery.
Yeah.
And the fact of God's name's not even in it.
Yeah.
Except you can
Right.
sure see His
Right.
handiwork all throughout it.
Yeah.
That's always been a fascinating thing to me. And then I love just the book of Esther in general.
Yeah.
What takes place there.
Songs of Solomon, I don't even know if I can even quote any scripture out of that one.
No, your neck is like an ivory tower.
There's one.
I never tried
After
to
that-
memorize that one.
It's
I have read it, so like I said, I've read the Bible. I have.
Yeah, I've read it numerous times.
Yeah.
I've studied it. Just, I was kind of like, I don't. And I know you can correlate Christ's love for us.
Yeah, well, that's what-
yeah.
There's the beauty of it there, that you got to love at the same time. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but even if you read some of the old hymns, there are times when, to me, some of those guys just go above and beyond with some of the sappiness that I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not a sappy.
Well, that's me too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you again, me being somebody who I love Ecclesiastes, that was you said right up my alley. Song of Solomon, totally opposite. Now it is cool to me though, like in the context of it, understanding Ecclesiastes was at the end of his life or towards the end of his life, and this is after he's chased everything and tried everything. It was I thoroughly enjoyed Ecclesiastes. I think that it's probably, I don't know if I can say it's my favorite of the Bible. It's John, Romans, and Ecclesiastes are probably my top three at this, so far. But I did love it, and actually, the one that's so often quoted, I think at funerals, Ecclesiastes 3, time for everything, basically. There's been a lot of times in my life that I didn't really like what God was doing, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a necessary part of the program, and it's, whether that's for my benefit or somebody else's benefit or wherever. There's just so many things, like I think I said this last week, there's been so many things that I am grateful for now that I would have prayed myself out of if he would have listened to my prayers. Yeah. If he would have given me what I wanted a long time ago, I wouldn't have something now. So
somebody be praying for that.
That's right. Yeah. The theme that I've been noticing in the Old Testament that I've been reading for a long time is don't worship other gods, false idols. That's a big. And I feel like it's just in the last little bit, whether it's Ecclesiastes or Esther or Isaiah. I feel like Isaiah especially. I've seen so much more on pride and that being a bigger and bigger thing. And I drew this little connection. I think I just put this down in my notebook last night, so it's pretty fresh. That the connectedness between those two. Because let's go back to the 10 Commandments. Okay, I can go through those commandments, and of all the 10 Commandments, there's some I'm pretty positive I haven't broken. I haven't killed anybody. And I would have thought worshiping false idols and having other gods would be one that I absolutely have never done that one. But I did write this in my notes last night. Pride is a form of self-worship.
Sure it is.
Which is the absolute probably worst false god you can have in your life. And if we're going to go that route, then I've absolutely done that. I have had another god before God, if you include me in that.
That's right.
And then you start to really draw the connection between why he hates pride so much. Because not only are we putting something before him, we're putting ourselves before him. And I think that's what I love so much about Ecclesiastes is it's the total opposite. It's basically the saying, without God, you bury me tomorrow, and I'm worthless. I am nothing without him. With him, I have everything in the world to live for. But without him, put me in the ground. I'm done. I have nothing.
And we've talked about that on the show. It might have been like second or third show we ever did.
Yeah.
Talking about the idols of the heart. And what that is we put our own idols in there. It doesn't have to be a statue. It doesn't have to be a wooden carved totem pole. It can be ourselves. It can be, and it is. We worship those things, and we put those on the throne of our lives, if you will. That's where Jesus says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul." So it's that first. And anytime that you don't, okay, now that's an idol of the heart.
Yeah. We're going to serve somebody.
Bob Dylan said that.
Yeah, that's right, Bob Dylan.
And,
serve, but he said you got to serve somebody.
He's got a movie coming out.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, my kids. It was funny watching my kids because one of them was like, "Who's Bob Dylan?" And the other one was, "Man, I don't listen to Bob Dylan. I thought that was the worst music ever."
It wasn't great, but he's.
I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. Actually, no offense, fans, but not a Bob Dylan. But now I do want to see the movie. At the same time, my other son was like, "Oh yeah, that's gonna be good." And I'm like, So, but all that being said, Bob Dylan said, "You're gonna serve somebody," but true. He's quoting Jesus too, because he said, "You're gonna serve either God or money, but you can't serve both."
He had a little religious run. I don't know where his heart was standing at the time or now, but I mean,
you can hear some of that.
He came out with that song, that album. Now that you've opened that up, I thought about it because I hadn't thought about that in so long. But that what was the album called? Something about a train, or
I couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah, the one that Rod Stewart covered. Is it Forever Young?
Yeah.
I think that was Bob
Is
Dylan.
that Bob
And
Dylan?
in the Bob Dylan version, there's a little bit different line that Rod Stewart didn't use. May God keep and
May the good Lord be with you down every road you drove.
that's
right?
it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the Rod Stewart version. So he copied
Is it?
that.
Did he? Okay, I didn't know that was in the Rod Stewart version.
But
May
that-
sunshine and happiness follow you when you're far from
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
But I had been told, and I really hadn't
Can't believe I
listened to
did
that
that.
album. Now, a lot of
Not
that-
a Bob Dylan
I
fan, he
was a Rod
said.
Stewart fan when I was a little kid.
You know, a lot of that album was so-called Christian songs.
Yeah, or it got a Christian theme.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he's got it. There was a little bit of that with Bob Dylan.
I don't know if that was just him doing that, or if he actually had conversion, or if he was. I mean, I just don't know.
Or if it was just the marijuana talking.
Well, that could have been.
I was thinking about
And
that.
that's a lot of songs that would come out.
Yeah,
I don't know that Bob was that. Was that a Bob thing?
I don't
I
know.
bet it was Bob Marley.
Bob
thing.
Marley, for
I don't
sure.
think it was a Bob Dylan. I'm
I think
sure
it was the
probably
70s. It was
All
probably-
them musicians were kind of
Yeah,
Yeah.
skeptical.
yeah. I was thinking about that this morning, though, actually. There's a lot of Christian. There was a show that I watched for a while that it was not a Christian show. It wasn't trying to be a Christian show, but it was almost like it accidentally knocked off so many things from Christianity that you couldn't help but notice
Right.
that there was an underlying theme in it. And I was thinking about that. It's like that's not an uncommon thing in society. I think maybe it is because of the culture, maybe it is because of the background or that culture of Christianity or whatever you want to call it. But it's like we want to gravitate towards forgiveness and treating other people kindly and redemption stories and all these different some of these things that are they're
I think they're universally accepted and known. You know, some of those themes, and I think it. Just
but we want to
goes
deny
show-
where they came from.
Right.
That's the thing.
That's
So
it.
we want to think we came up with them and not.
That's it.
Yes, we agree with all these things that yes, they just happen to be in the Bible, but the Bible can't be true.
That's it. Well, and I think it goes to show that when it all comes down to it, we're all created by the same Creator, and there are some things that each and every person has, every culture that are good, that are bad. Think about the Bible. I mean, you got good versus evil, triumphant. You got losses. You got victory. You got stories. You got people who fail. People who, and all that is just part of human life. And I think that's what I love about the Bible so much is it's real life. These aren't just made up people. I mean, you got a David that's going to fail miserably. You got several folks that you look up to, but then you realize, oh, their feet are clay just like ours. Abraham, who did numerous things that he probably shouldn't have, and Peter, who constantly couldn't get out of his own way. At the same time, that's a God who loves them and a God who uses those imperfect people. And so those themes are all throughout. I mean, you got it right. Redemption. Who doesn't love a good redemption? Even if you're not born again, good redemption story. That's some of the best sports there ever was. I mean, the Carolina National Championship a couple of years ago. Redemption. You know, you have all kinds of. I mean, life itself. Truth is seen in it.
Yeah.
It's just whether, like you said, whether you're going to really recognize that's the hand of God, or are you just going to be, oh, that's a good story.
Well, and sometimes people, I think, want to take the credit for it and think humans have this, I don't know, we have this like natural morality that's born into us that therefore we're the ones who were made good, that figured out that these concepts of loving each other and all this stuff, so we're the good ones and that's how we, but to me I look at it the opposite side and say, well, where did it come from then?
Yeah.
How did you have this built-in goodness that you think you have without God?
Yeah,
But
you're created in the image of God. That's part of us being an image bearer.
Yeah.
And you're right. And even the conscience that we have,
Yeah.
it all came from that same spot. Is we have a creator.
Yeah.
That, and I think going back to Ecclesiastes, He's put eternity in our heart. So these things of God, they're placed there.
Yeah.
You know. So I think that verse also deals with the fact that we're eternal. We're going to spend eternity somewhere. But I believe that placing eternity in our hearts also deals with we can know some of the things of God because, again, created in the image of God. Those things are there.
I think He wants to reveal those things to us. He just
no doubt.
wants us to be willing to understand that it's on His terms that He reveals those things, and we're not entitled to what we want to know right this second.
Right.
We're not entitled to that one prayer being answered. We're not entitled to this one thing we think we deserve. We get what He gives us, and I don't mean that in a bad, like that you get what you get kind of way. I just mean it's, we don't approach him with the humility sometimes I was reading 1 Corinthians, spiritual gifts, chapter 12, I think, and how they were kind of arguing or getting upset about they didn't have this gift or that gift and wanting this bigger. It's like, rather than just appreciating
being thankful
what you have as a gift,
or use it.
Right.
Just use what you got.
Yeah.
Because it's for the good of the body. It lifts up the body, it edifies the body, and it's for the glorification of God. So use it, even if it's a small one. Don't compare it. Use it.
You can't have 53 quarterbacks on an NFL team. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. I think we all kind of want to be that spotlight role or that whatever. Or and maybe it's the opposite. Sometimes maybe people don't want the spotlight. But you get where you go where God tells you to go.
That's right.
And
that's right. And you can't have 53 thumbs.
That's right.
That don't work right.
That's right.
Yeah, but
You
in our
gotta have
society,
an eye and you gotta have toes.
I see a lot of Christians praying for self-improvement, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It depends on the heart behind
let's
it.
define that. Let's. I'm curious about what you mean.
Lose
by that.
weight, that kind of thing. I mean, just.
But I mean, I can see that may not
That's
be
not
a
a
bad
bad.
thing.
No, that's not a bad thing.
Especially if I'm unhealthy.
Yeah.
Lord,
yes.
I need some health, because it is a spiritual battle sometimes for people.
Or wishing I could,
eating.
or praying that that I can do things that I used to do.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, or gain muscle weight, or let's just say a better job,
Right.
or a high-paying job. I mean, well, I just think we pray for a lot of our prayers are self-centered.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
But
that's
no,
what I meant by
But praying for yourself and being God-centered, I think can happen.
Oh yes, absolutely. I pray for myself that I can present the gospel better.
Or that I can be more loving. Or Lord,
Mhm.
would you help me to die to self so I can?
But should I pray that I can be richer?
I could make an argument that it's
Well, I can
possible.
make an argument. Yeah. But I mean,
And I think it all goes back to
motives?
I don't think I think it's one of Lord, I'm going to tithe and above, and so Lord, I'm going to trust you that you'll bring that in, and Lord, help me to be faithful that if I do get, because here's what oftentimes happens. Okay, you start tithing and then the Lord blesses you with more. Are you going to be willing to step up and do it that? Because if you're not willing to tithe on $10, you're not going to be willing to tithe on $10,000.
Okay, well, should you start tithing if you get more? Would you?
You should tithe what you make.
Yes, gross or net.
Which one you want to be blessed on?
Well, it depends on
Which one you want to be, gross or net?
Is God more important than the government, or is the government more important than
I mean,
God?
to me, it's a matter of, again,
I
gross
mean,
or net.
people
I'm gonna always
do
say,
net and people do gross.
Yeah.
So which one?
I'm gonna say again, I think it's not rather than making it a rule, let's go back to the cheerful giver, and I know God's blessed me, so therefore I'm gonna give. And so I don't sit down with a calculator and say 0.1 times.
Yeah.
I just know that I'm expected to give 0.1, and I say expected, and maybe I should talk. I know I'm going to give 0.1, and then I'm going to give above that because I enjoy, God, you bless me, so let me help be a blessing to somebody else.
I had that conversation with somebody the other day. Do you tithe on the gross or the net?
I think if you're asking that question, you're already not looking
Well,
at the
I
right
think
place.
I
No
agree.
offense to
Why you gotta be
the
legalistic here?
yeah.
My answer was God, who's more important, the government or
Yeah.
Well,
God?
mine is,
I
I
just
go back
like
to
it.
which one you want to be blessed on.
Yeah.
I think I'll choose the gross.
Well, it goes
that's-
back to whose money do you think it is in the first place?
Yeah.
Because if you view it as, hey, this is, I think that there was an analogy. I don't know if I said this on the show or not, but when I was an advisor, I was managing people's money. That was my job. I managed people's money for a living, and they paid me to do that. And I think I'm trying to look at all of my blessings in life, whether it's money, whether it's kids, whether it's relationships, whether it's whatever, spiritual giftings, anything God's given me. It's not mine.
That's right.
I'm in charge of stewarding it.
Yeah. All right.
And
Hey, you
taking
got it.
care, and there's something interesting about the fiduciary standard is a gigantic term that's thrown around in financial services now.
Yes.
You know what the fiduciary standard means? It is to put the client's interests first and above that of the advisor. Same thing with God, right? We just apply the fiduciary standard to God, but whatever He's given you, you do what is in His best interest, not your own, and that's
Right.
the hardest thing to do as a human, I think sometimes, is to remember that concept, is that it's not yours anyway.
Right.
We just got a lot of distractions in this country, I think.
I think
Sure.
humans naturally come distracted.
Yeah.
Well, it could be in other
Because
countries,
it
too.
was the same way when Jesus was on the earth. It's the same way when Solomon wrote the Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
We got plenty of things we can get involved with and distracted from.
What,
And that's where we got to set our mind on the things that are above. That's so important.
Well, what sins do we have now that they didn't have in Jesus' time?
Sins or distractions?
No, I think the sins are the same.
Same,
They might
yeah.
be a little bit more gross,
Or they
or they might be a little more easy to get to, or they might be a little bit more. I mean, I don't know that they
They look
necessarily
better.
had. Yeah, well,
They-
I think,
yeah,
but at the very heart of the matter, at the very heart of the choosing to sin, it's the same.
Oh, yeah.
Humans ain't changed. We are just as depraved as we've always been.
I don't know if there's a sin in the Bible that we have now that wasn't in the Old Testament.
No, I think you can go back. I don't know that there wasn't a sin in the Garden of Eden.
That could be, yeah.
That's just the one that Adam and Eve did. That kind of is the heart of sin, ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
That it just takes. It looks different, but it's the same. Or
It's colored.
kind of using an agricultural term, it's a different species. No, it's the same species. Might be a different kind, but it is the exact same.
We just see it at a different level.
Yeah, the heart and there's more of it, so it looks darker because there's just more of it. We got 8 billion people versus, back then couple of million, but we had 8 billion on the planet, so there's a lot more sin and darkness.
But there's not a new one that I know of.
Well, I mean, doesn't know what
They say.
Solomon said? There's nothing new under the sun,
Yeah.
and there ain't much I ain't tried, and ain't much I ain't done.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a couple 1,000 years before Christ. So yeah, that's 3,000 from us.
And I've heard this argument. Well, it's not in the Bible. You know,
Well, a lot of
certain
stuff
sins.
isn't in the Bible.
Well, it really is. You're just not looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our language is completely different than the way they.
Well, if
talk
you're
about
looking
it.
for the specific, I mean, I don't know that you're gonna find snorting cocaine in there.
Yeah, but what would you find in there?
Yeah.
that
Well, I mean,
supports that?
well, you do see Paul does talk about pharmacia when
No,
he's
I'm
talking
just
about
saying.
wickedness and drugs. I mean, you see that. So Paul
Well-
Paul has against that, but then they also have.
I mean, alcohol.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, alcohol's in there plenty.
yes, and so you can substitute drugs for alcohol
Yeah,
because
good.
you're doing the same thing.
Good. Or you
It's
can
just-
just go to 1 Corinthians 10:31. Therefore, whatsoever you eat or drink, do all for the glory of God. Or do you not? 1 Corinthians 6:9, which is or 6:19, which is your body's a temple. I mean, you can easily you don't have to have that specific, but
And also, our words are different. You know, like homosexuality is not in the Bible. I agree, but there is
I'm
something
pretty sure
that says
there
you're
is
sleep.
some.
No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual word.
I
right.
think it is, isn't it? I think it is.
I mean, it's translated as homosexual.
Yeah.
Which one? Not the King James.
1 Corinthians it is.
King James.
Mhm.
Which one?
Hold on, I'll find it for you.
Okay, good. I was told.
Now,
but-
Jesus never said much about it,
No.
but Paul does.
Oh yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
But it is in the Bible. Men lie with men.
Yeah.
And so,
That's in the
but
Old Testament.
I've heard, and I was told that it wasn't in the Bible, but it is in the Bible. It's just under a different name. I didn't know the specific word was in there.
No, it's
Um,
translated as that in the Bible. I'll find it for you.
1 Corinthians 6:9.
Well, we got 50.
Did I say that earlier? 1 Corinthians 6:9. I know I said 6:19.
I think you said 6:19. This is 6.
Well, I was
9 or
talking
10.
about.
He's looking for it in the King James. Do you
Yeah,
have
this
King
is
James?
this is New American Standard, but 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 10.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of
9
things-
is the one that says no
'cause
homosexuals.
sometimes the word will not be in one translation, but it's in another one.
But it's getting at basically same sex. That's what it's
Yeah,
getting at.
exactly. But my point was, some sins are not called what we call them today, but they are in there under another name.
Right. I get that.
That's all.
But I
I'm
mean,
saying. That's
but
all
you're
I'm
dealing
saying.
with language. That's the problem with language is it changes. I mean,
Yeah.
the word
Oh, right.
cool to my forefathers or to the founding fathers of the nation wouldn't have meant a thing. Other than it's the weather, it's cool in here, or it's cool outside.
And it could
But
be-
we say cool, and that can mean, okay, I'm good with that, or it can mean that's fantastic, or it can be it's cool outside.
And it's like Revelations, John says grasshoppers, it could have been
Yeah.
helicopters if he knew that's what it was.
All right.
Yeah, so that's all I was
I
saying.
get you.
The content's there, but maybe the exact word that you're looking for might not be there.
I think sometimes I would point to this verse, and it's almost not related, but it kind of is. 1 Corinthians 9:23. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much is what you're doing wrong as much as is what you're doing for the sake of the gospel.
Right.
What you
What
should
you're
be
doing right.
Well, that should be the only thing that you are. Everything, if we're doing it by the book, by the letter, straight down the middle of the fairway,
Right.
everything we do should be for the sake of the gospel.
That's right.
Now, that's the part where we all fall
Well-
huge, so far short.
Well, when
But-
I see people, hear people saying it's not in the Bible, they're not looking for the answer, they're looking for an argument,
That's true. Yeah.
really.
Or they're just looking to argue that they're right.
Yeah.
They're trying to justify their position. That's really most of the time when you use that argument is I'm trying to justify my position. And most of the time they know it's wrong, but they're just trying to justify it.
They're already guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to appease that conscience is a very valuable thing to most people. If I can just make my conscience or squelch it
Settle
or
it
quiet
down.
down, yep,
Yeah.
then maybe I'm not so wrong.
Well, I guess one way to get your conscience to settle down is keep doing it. Eventually, it will.
Yeah, that'll
Hard.
sear that conscience.
Yeah. The other night I was out on the balcony, just kind of hanging out before I went to bed and looking up at the stars a little bit, and you can't see many of them where I'm at. And I've always loved space. I've always been a little bit of a space nut. I've always enjoyed looking at the stars and stuff. And to me, that's definitely a way that God shows Himself to us, is through the creation. And I love to look up at all the stars and just try to even pretend to wrap my mind around the fact that He knows every single thing that's going on at that star and that planet and this and this, and just try to. It's amazing to me.
Or that he flung everyone he knows and he holds them in place.
Yeah, everything from the star, the most distant star, to the blade of grass under my feet. He knows everything on the whole scale, and it's just a cool thing for me to think about. As I'm looking up, there's a lot of things that can keep you from seeing all the stars in the sky. And around here, a lot of that's man-made. There's a lot of light pollution, a lot of stuff like that. But the fact that I can't see it doesn't make it any less there. Your distractions might have changed. He doesn't change. And even when you can't see it,
That's it. That's the point.
that's the point.
Yeah. And I think that's where faith comes in, because faith is going to be, there are going to be times when what sight looks terrible.
That's right.
Sight looks like God doesn't care. God's nowhere around. Sight looks and says, God, you don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
But truth comes in and says, yeah, God loves me because He demonstrated His great love for us, that while we were sinners, Christ died for us. Truth says He never leaves us nor forsakes us. Truth says that when we go through the waters, He will not let it get up over our heads. And when we walk through the furnace, He's not going to let us be scorched. So you got to know, and that's one of the things I did a devotion with my staff this morning, and one of the things I stressed to them was, you got to know who God is before you go into a battle. You got to know who God is before you go into the valleys, because if you don't have that nailed down, you're gonna be more susceptible to getting stomped. You're gonna be more susceptible to losing, and because nailing it down before. And here's the thing: it's not a matter of if troubles happen; it's when. So you got to nail that down before you get in there. What do you believe about God? Who is He? What did He do for me? And is He good? And is He faithful? If you can nail those down, especially those last two, if God is good and God is faithful, then even when I find myself in the hardest situation there is, a loss of a loved one, unexpected death, a heartache that just came out of the blue, I can trust God is good, God is faithful. Even if it don't all make sense, I can trust it. And that's, if you can get to that point, that's a huge, huge place to be in. And that'll encourage you.
I see a lot of Christians trusting themselves.
Sure they do.
And here's my point is, finances.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big, big thing where a lot of people trust, if they go bankrupt, that fear factor gets into, and then that causes you to really,
Oh, I thought it was going to be to blame God.
well, yeah, they do that too, blame God,
Yeah.
But it's a lot of sin, I think, has come from being fearful of what holds in the future.
Right.
Pharaoh, they were fearful that the people would get too many, that they would
Yeah, the Egyptians.
revolt.
Pharaoh
So
was
they were
scared
so
of that.
fear. He might have got them
But it's about
for that.
control.
It was to control what they already had.
Yeah.
So we're going to make slaves out of them.
Right.
To keep them under control. So,
And also to kill the male boy babies.
yeah, that was genocide there.
Yeah.
That was done out of fear.
Sure.
I don't know if that was if Pharaoh actually said, if he was actually afraid of that, or he made people around him feel fearful that
Right.
might happen.
Or somebody mentioned to him,
Yeah.
hey, these folks are getting big.
Yeah, and so
There's
a lot of things,
there's
a
more
lot of
of them
sins
than us.
are done based out of fear.
No, I think a majority of it is.
Well, and
Whether it's fear of missing out, fear of God's holding
Yeah.
out on me, fear of, there's so many things that
Fear of the
goes
future.
into it. Yeah, oh goodness. Yeah.
Well, and a false sense of control over a
what-
situation in the first
Yes,
place. I
that's
mean,
it.
it's you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want to do and to control the situation. At the end of the day, God's still God. If that's not what he can.
Whether you like it or not, you're
That's
not in
right.
control.
That's right.
I have seen so many people, they were in control, but life changes on a dime. The next day, they're all falling apart.
Yeah.
That's something that happened.
You can diversify your investments. You can put them in a million different accounts and a million different investments and a million different whatever. And if an asteroid hits the planet and knocks out the power grid and you can't access any of your money, then what good did it do you? I mean, you can play these scenarios out all day long. Whatever you want to do to control
You don't get rain
it.
and that crop doesn't
That's
grow,
right.
and the next thing you know, the price of chocolate drops out.
That's
and
right.
You invested everything in Hershey's.
So I don't think, I don't
Yeah.
think Christians, I'm not saying everybody, but I think a lot of Christians they don't trust God as much as they think they trust Him.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think a big portion of that is we say the word trusting God, but do we really know what it means? I think that's one. Okay, define what it means. And that's one of the things the show is kind of, the other 167 is designed towards is, okay, what does it mean when we say love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul? How do I do this? What does it mean to trust God? And I'm not sure that a lot of Christians technically know exactly what that means. It means trusting Him with everything. Even the small details, even to the point of, okay, are you going to die to self? Are you going to hand over the reins to your life to that?
And now that you said that, even Abraham, he had a hard time trusting God.
Well, we have to learn it.
But the thing is, he didn't, I guess he did trust in God that He would provide an heir, okay?
Well, he also trusted God to leave his home.
Yes.
I mean, but it's something that you learn.
But he did not trust God to keep him alive.
Right. Well, and I think
Not
that
once,
therein
but
lies
twice.
the growth of it that
Yeah.
happens.
The one was before Isaac was born, then that again happened after Isaac was born.
But I think it's one of I think we're both right that the fact of most Christians don't trust God, but at the same time, it is a learned day by day process that you may get an A on the test today and make an F tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Isaac learned from his father because he did the same thing.
Yeah, but you can get an A today and an F tomorrow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isaac, I can't. Did Isaac go down to Egypt too? I can't remember.
I don't remember
But
Isaac doing much because Isaac was about as vanilla as he could be.
Yeah, I think he.
Jacob was rocky road.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
I mean, if Abraham's chocolate, Isaac is vanilla because he's just as clay. But Jacob, oof, that was rocky road, man. He's all over the place.
Yeah, that was all over.
He's a deceiver.
Yeah.
I mean, you read the book of Genesis, and you're like I said, late night TV ain't got nothing on it. When you read it, good night. They were doing what, and they did what, and what.
Yeah, he got deceived by a lot of people.
He did his own share.
He did his own share. He got it right back.
Karma may not be a biblical, but there are some aspects of karma in the scriptures. I mean, Proverbs talks about A little bit. Now, again, I'm not saying it is,
Yeah.
but there is a reap what you sow. That's
Yeah.
kind of karmatic.
Yeah.
And he did.
Sure, that's a word. We'll make it a
karmatic.
word.
His Laban would have been bad enough,
Oh, yeah.
but then his own sons deceived him for 30 years, 25, 30 years. Yeah.
The kids-
lying
Yeah,
about
lying
Joseph.
about Joseph.
Yeah, and that hurt too.
Sure.
He lived with that burden for years, but well, ever how long it was, 30 years. I'm just saying.
Part of the problem with Christians is that do we trust God? Sure we do. On Sunday mornings, absolutely we do.
Sure.
Ask us, absolutely. Of course we know not to say otherwise. It's never comfortable to find out whether or not you trust God or not.
Right.
It's going to be an uncomfortable situation for you to find out, do you really trust Him or not? I'll tell you, the kids told me the other day, I didn't know this. I knew this on one end of the spectrum, but I didn't know it on the other end. So I knew that if your body is hot, you burn more calories than
Right.
if it's no. I didn't know that you burn more calories if you were cold too. But
Well,
apparently,
you're shivering,
you're
trying to
shivering, and so your body is always trying to regulate itself. And I told the kids, if you want to go super deep on this for a second, there's a lot of God in that in a way, because us being comfortable makes us fat, fat and happy, right? Being uncomfortable is what keeps us healthy, builds muscle. Now, I'm not going to start sleeping in 25-degree weather just so I be skinny.
Nobody wants that.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is an element of that, a lot of trusting God for sure. Can you think of a scenario that you can learn, that you can know for sure that you trust God without it being put to the test? It has to be put to the test. The analogy I'm thinking of is what you mentioned in church a few weeks back of taking that step out onto that raggedy bridge and knowing if it'll hold you.
No,
Or
I
can you?
think the ultimate. I mean, we talk a good game.
Right.
Trust actually always comes down to actions.
Right.
Don't tell me you trust me unless.
That's right.
I mean, all right. Case in point, spouse tells the other spouse, couple. One of them tells the other one, "Man, I love you dearly. Man, you're the light of my life." Then he or she stepping out with somebody else.
Yeah.
Am I going to trust you even though you're telling me this?
Yeah.
Again, words. I go back. Talk is cheap. Let's
Yeah.
go back 2 weeks ago to our sermon. Talk
Yeah.
is cheap.
Yeah.
You can talk a good game, but when it all comes down to it, and I think that's that same parable.
Yeah.
For those two sons, Jesus telling those self-righteous Pharisees, they're going to get in heaven before you because you're depending on yourself and you're not really, you talk it, but you're not stepping out in it.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a time where when you say you trust that it is not going to involve some kind of putting it into action.
Well, in my life, I trust Him that I'm saved. But do I trust Him in everything? Probably not.
Right.
Ask me tomorrow.
But
I'll tell you. So ask me tomorrow. See what happens today.
So how I mean, I guess the question he's asking is, how do you know? Are you stepping out in it? And here's my response to your side, because that was your side, but to your side is, you really want to know if you trust? You've been talking about it all day. Look at your finances.
Yes. Well, that's really the last thing that goes.
I
But
mean,
I think
that's really. I mean, you want to draw the ire, or I tell you what,
that's a
look at
test right
people's
there.
finances, or look at how they raise their children, because you want to draw people's ire quicker than anything else as a pastor. Start talking about their money or their children, or just you ain't even got to be a pastor. Just
Well, I've seen
just
it.
want somebody's money or their children, or give me your Social Security number. Well, whoa! What do you want that for? Well, again, because you're trying to scam me, or you're trying to who's-ka-do me on something, or just say one thing bad about my youngins, and we own.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the last thing that goes is your finances. But a lot of Christians,
And
not
isn't
all
that
of
funny? Isn't that what
it's
God
strange,
says
isn't it?
is no? But isn't that what God says? If I can't trust you in that, it's almost like that's the simple things,
Yeah.
but we make it the most important thing.
in my life, I trust Him on some things, not everything. And I think that would be for every Christian. Well,
No, well, we all have our areas, but
there
I
are
think
some
the
things I
goal
do.
the goal is for
Some
all.
things I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But to fully trust Him on everything, I'm still working on that. Because I get sidetracked on, that was kind of impossible. I don't know. But I have days where, I trust Him for everything. Then there's days when, I'm not so sure that I trust Him on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to work this one out.
And again, it's seen in your actions.
And that's just me.
Yep. But it's seen in your actions. That's the thing I can't stress enough. Is we talk trust. Trust is stepping out.
If he
It
flipped
really
it
is.
around on you and one day came to you and I'm assuming here that you could actually understand 100% that this is from God. You knew that he spoke to you and he told you this, and he told you he was flipping the numbers around on it this month, and instead of giving him 10%, he was going to let you keep 10% and he was going to take the other 90. Would you trust him to make up the
That
gap?
would be a tough one.
Yeah, that's
For everybody.
I think that's you got to ask yourself almost that impossible scenario of, okay, even if.
Would you give it all if he asked?
Well, a lot of us trust God on the big things. I do. But the small things, the everyday things that we don't necessarily trust him on.
I think it's both.
Well, I mean, when I say big things, I'm talking
But the little
salvation.
things add up.
That's what,
Yeah.
when I'm talking about the big things, I'm talking about, I trust him with my salvation.
Right.
I trust that I'm going to be in heaven. And those are things I really should be questioning, more so than things that are the small things. But it seems to me that I trust him on those things, but on the little things, sometimes I have a hard time.
Right.
I mean, I'll just be honest with you.
No, I agree. I agree.
I mean, you might have it all together, right? Dan?
No, I think we are. If you're not struggling, I dare say you're not growing. If you're not struggling, I dare say you're not even remotely. If you're not struggling, you're going backwards. And I mean, there's always going to be a fight. There's always going to be that struggle that God is testing you, or God is showing you areas of your life to where, all right, we still got areas to improve. I mean, I'm going to talk about it Sunday. Paul was that way. In 1 Corinthians, he's only been a Christian for maybe 15 years. And he says, I'm the least of the apostles.
And I believe when he said that.
10 years later, but 10 years later, he's going to write to Timothy, or not Timothy, he's going to write in another book. He's going to write 30 years later in Timothy, but 10 years later, he's going to write and say, well, I'm the least of the saints. Mm-hmm. 10 years later after that. So he's been a Christian for over 30 years, and he's going to say, I'm the chief of sinners. Mm-hmm. Whoa, you've gone from the least of the apostles, which is pretty good company. Out of 12, I'm number 12. I can live with that.
Yeah.
I'm the chief of sinners. So if you take all the sinners in the world, I'm number one with a bullet. Where did that come from? Other than, hey, he has seen his depravity. He has seen the struggles, and he knows he still struggles. And he's been walking with the Lord for 30 years and penning the New Testament. So therefore, for us, we're going to be the same way. We're going to have those struggles. And the closer I draw closer to Jesus, the more I find out I got further to go, because his standard is so much different than mine.
I guess I'm like Paul, minus the revelations that he was getting.
Right.
Yeah. And the longer that I walk this road,
Mm-hmm.
the
worse
more
I
I
see
feel that I fall.
Yeah, or the further I got to go.
Yeah.
I feel like I've grown, but golly, I'm still so far away.
The closer I get to God, the bigger the test, and also the bigger the revelation maybe that comes out of it, or the bigger the lesson learned from it. It's easy for me to say, it's easy for me to trust God with my finances. I don't have any to trust Him with. but you want to challenge me on that? Okay, well, trust Him with your salvation. Well, that's a big one.
Right.
Trust Him with your life. Okay, well, that's an easy one for me too. The harder I have to go out that is, okay, trust Him with my kid's life. Okay, well, that's a tough one, but if I lose them, they go to heaven, that's okay. I think I can try to wrestle with that one. It'd be hard, but I trust Him with it. Okay, well, what I've had to deal with a little bit more recently is trusting Him with their salvation and understanding that, yes, they are no different than anybody else in the world out there in terms of I'm just an instrument. I don't control their salvation. Right. I don't have anything that I can do to guarantee 100% that they're going to accept. Right. I can plant the seed and be an instrument for God, but at the end of the day, I have to trust Him to do what needs to be done to communicate that. Now, it's really easy the harder you move out on that important. You're getting further and further out on that ledge there. The more important it becomes more personal. Well, now I don't want to let go of control. But that's what reveals your pride, because wherever it is that you say, that's not, no, I can't give up control of that one. I got it. That's where He really gets to kind of look at you and say, why? If it's the more important it becomes, the less you're willing to trust me, then what does that really show
exactly
about who you think He is?
That's a great point. the more personal it is. Oh yeah, we're all going to heaven. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's not really. We all believe that, but
Yeah.
as you drill down,
It's
It gets
easy to
a little
pray for
tougher.
all people to be saved and trust God,
Yeah.
but when it comes down to that one that you're praying for, that's on your mind, or that one thing you're having a hard time letting go of, that's where He really
Personally,
shows me I
it's
still
all
have
it is to trust.
a long way to go on pride.
And therein lies just that little phrase you just said, what I'm having trouble letting go of.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the whole gist of it. Whether it's people, whether it's stuff, whether it's, regardless of what the thing is, are you willing to let go and let God have it?
Yeah.
That can be money, that can be your whatever. Are you willing to let go? That's where trust is.
Find going further and further and further up that ladder to the thing that is the absolute most special to you. Can you let that go?
Yep.
Because you should. If you trust Him and He is who you say He is,
Right.
you should trust Him more. The more important something is to you. But
You can use that micro thing. In your sermon.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Now, how you spell it? M-A-C-R-O?
Just let you know you can use
That
that.
made me want some nerds, man.
I loved your crock pot
Nerd
story on
roast.
Sunday, by the way.
The what?
The crock pot story.
Oh,
Getting all the ingredients in,
man.
perfect
Oh,
chili.
we had them cooked, cut. It was ready. That was going to be good, too. I was looking forward to that.
Got to turn it on.
Didn't even plug it in. She turned it on.
Oh, she did?
She turned it on. It
You
just
didn't
won't plug it in.
This morning I was dropping the kids off. Gabe had a math test this morning, and he goes so fast. He can do a math problem faster than I can put it in the calculator. Problem is he doesn't actually check his work, and he makes careless mistakes. So I was dropping him
Raise it
off.
on, baby.
That's right. I dropped him off this morning. I was saying, Gabe, I said, I know you know how to do the math. So if you mess it up, I know it's because you were sloppy, you were lazy, or you were arrogant. Okay? And I can deal with you not knowing it. I can't deal with sloppy, lazy, or arrogant.
Not when you should be making up.
Right. What Reese said to me, she said, Dad, sloppy, lazy, and arrogant are the three things you can't handle. You're the worst in the world in all three of those. How is that going to
That's why I can't stand it.
That's why I can't
Honestly,
stand
that's
it.
the truth.
I said, because I've seen what sloppy, lazy, and arrogant leads to.
You know, it's the truth, though. It's the things that we struggle with the most that we oftentimes judge people are hard on.
Good point. Wow. Way to turn that joke into a deep
Well,
thought.
I know it's something of my own.
It is.
It's my own
Yeah.
because there are times when I'm like, ugh, that gets on my nerves. And the reason being, that's me. I
Yeah.
just saw me and I hate me there.
I thought
We
you were-
judge harder on things that
I thought you were saying something about your child.
No. About my job?
Child.
Oh, no. But we
Saw
see,
yourself in her.
but we're harder on our children on those areas
Oh,
that,
yes.
because I know
We
what
know
that
the
leads to.
consequences. Yeah.
That's true.
And so we're harder on them in that areas, and we can see ourselves saying, if that ain't being in a dress, that's me. Every time I see Nicole, I'm like, girl, don't, it's going to,
Bye, everybody.
live by ourselves. Yeah, don't take your foot out of that basketball part. I don't know
What
that
was
it's.
that? Hesses? Are you
That's
doing Hebrew
that's the
on us
Hebrew
now?
word.
Yeah.
The Hebrew
Oh,
word
okay.
for loving kindness.
I think this was English. I got a question for you. What day is July 4th holiday?
I'm intrigued.
Always. All right, here we go. Which one?
July 4th. I'm giving you the answer.
Tell the nerds.
No, I haven't got more in there.
I'm
Got Oreos.
gonna do the cookie thing.
That's the date.
That's the day.
Right.
It's on July 4th.
Right. But now what day is Thanksgiving? You don't know.
Well, it could be 1 through 7. I mean, Sunday through Monday to Saturday.
No.
Not the last Thursday, the fourth Thursday in November.
There you go. But you don't know what date it is.
10 divided by infinity versus a million divided by infinity. Which one's bigger?
I didn't know math was going to be on this thing.
Well, I never seen a crock pot, and it was in the refrigerator, and I just put it on the stove and heat it up. Thing cracked.
Or
The
forget it.
suckers look good too.
The
That's bad.
That's,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
That's bad. That's the date. But you said what day?
Yeah, what? Oh, okay. What day? All right. Okay. What color is the White House?
White.
Wait a minute. Is this the same joke? Or did we mess that joke up?
You messed that one up, but this is.
I messed it up.